The body of the Seigneur de Piennes had been dressed in his finest clothes and laid, according to custom, upon a small camp bed in the middle of the great hall, his hands crossed over his naked sword, so that he looked almost like the stone effigy upon a tomb. Jeanne, pale after the long night she had spent keeping vigil beside her father, went to the window and opened it a little. At that moment the distant sound of a galloping horse reached her ears.
"There he is,"
she cried. Her eyes fastened upon the door through which she expected her beloved François to appear. It opened, and Jeanne, who had already begun to move toward it, stopped as though turned to stone. A great chill passed through her. It was not François who entered, but his brother. Henri de Montmorency advanced 3 steps and stopped before her without uncovering his head or offering the slightest bow.
"Madame,"
he said,
"I bring you news which I swore to deliver this morning. Without that oath, you would not see me here at such an hour, and certainly not standing in the place of the man you were expecting. François left during the night."
A faint moan escaped Jeanne.
"Left?
She repeated timidly.
But he will return soon, surely. Perhaps today."
"François will not return." Jeanne pressed both hands against her breast.
"War has broken out. François asked for and obtained the honor of riding to Therouanne, where he is to attempt to stop the army of Charles V. To oppose the emperor with a handful of cavalry is nothing less than to seek death. I owe you the whole truth, madame, and I believe I owe you my brother's thoughts as well. Caught in a situation from which he saw no honorable escape, forced either to disavow a marriage he regretted or incur the constable's disgrace, François chose the most glorious form of suicide."
Jeanne became as white as the corpse lying behind her. A terrible cry burst from her, and she sank to her knees. In the midst of the catastrophe that had fallen upon her, one thought alone gathered all her anguish into a single cry.
"My child! My poor child!"
For a long time she remained prostrate, sobbing, forgetful of Henri, forgetful of her dead father, forgetful even of herself, and most of all of herself. At length she raised her head and said,
"Very well. Where the husband goes, the wife must follow. Tonight I shall leave for Therouanne."
"You,"
Henri exclaimed.
"You cannot mean it. You would cross a country overrun by armies and pass through enemy lines? No, you will not go."
"And who will prevent me?"
"I will."
Passion broke loose in him before he could master it. He seized Jeanne and drew her violently into his arms.
"Jeanne, he has gone and left you behind. He was too cowardly even to proclaim his love, and a man who can abandon you so cannot truly love you. But I do. I adore you to the point of madness. For you I would defy heaven and hell. I would plunge a dagger into my own father's breast if he stood between me and my love. Let François die the death of the weak, since he did not know how to keep you. I want you, Jeanne, and I would claim you before the whole world. Give me one word of hope, or no, say nothing. Let me see only one look in your eyes that is not anger, and I shall know I may still hope."
Jeanne scarcely heard him. All her strength was bent upon escaping his embrace, and after a desperate struggle she succeeded in tearing herself free. She stood before him, seeming almost taller in the violence of her emotion, and looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped forward, raised one hand, and touched his forehead with her finger.
"Take off your hat, monsieur. If you cannot show respect for the woman before you, at least show it for the dead."
Henri started. His troubled eyes turned toward the corpse, which until that moment he seemed scarcely to have noticed. Slowly he lifted a hand toward his head, as though compelled by shame to uncover himself, but the gesture remained unfinished. His arm fell again, his eyes darkened, and all the pride and violence of his race rushed back upon him.
"By God's death, madame, do you forget that I am standing in my own house, and that after my father I alone have the right to remain covered beneath this roof?"
"Your house?"
Jeanne cried, unable at first to understand him.
"Yes, my house. The judgment of the Parliament which was delivered here restores margency to our family, and I will not permit a vassal—"
He did not finish. Jeanne sprang toward a small chest containing her father's papers, opened it, drew out the first parchment that came to hand, and read it rapidly. Then she let it fall and called for the servants in a voice that drowned Henri's.
Guillaume, Jacques, Toussaint, Pierre, come here, all of you.
Madame,
Henri began. The servants, already dressed in mourning, entered the hall, and several peasants from Margency came in behind them.
Come in, all of you.
Jeanne continued, sustained now by a strange and feverish exaltation.
Come and hear the news. I am no longer mistress here.
She seized one of her father's cold hands and shook it as though appealing to him even in death.
Is it not true, father, that we are no longer at home? Is it not true that they have driven us out? You would not remain another minute beneath the roof of this accursed race, would you? Come, all of you. Do you not hear me? The Seigneur de Piennes no longer lies in his own house.
Her cheeks burned, her eyes blazed, and crimson stood high upon her cheekbones. She moved among the servants with such feverish authority that no one thought of resisting her, placing them one by one around the camp bed. And when everything was ready, she gave the signal. 8 men lifted the bed onto their shoulders. The others formed themselves into a procession, muttering curses beneath their breath, while Jeanne took her place at the head. Henri watched the scene as though trapped in a nightmare. He saw the dead man carried through the doorway, then Jeanne disappear after him, and at last heard only the fading murmur of imprecations drifting back from the village. With a furious stamp of his foot, he rushed outside, leapt onto his horse, and rode away. When Jeanne reached the old nurse's cottage, where she had ordered her father's body to be taken, her strength suddenly deserted her. She collapsed, and almost at once a violent fever seized her. Consciousness left her, and only the ravings of delirium showed that life still remained. Henri passed a terrible night, torn between humiliating shame, fits of mad fury, and fresh storms of passion. The next day he returned to Margency prepared for anything, perhaps even for murder, but the news that awaited him struck him down more surely than any weapon. Jeanne was dying. From that day onward he returned constantly, prowling about the peasant cottage without daring to enter. Weeks became months, and almost a year passed, a dreadful year during which his passion grew more violent with every day. Then, suddenly, word arrived that Thérouanne had fallen, that the city had been razed, the garrison put to the sword, and François had disappeared. Perhaps he was dead. Henri hoped so. That monstrous hope took root in his heart, grew there, and gradually became almost a conviction. It hardened into certainty when a few men-at-arms, exhausted, gaunt, their clothes hanging in rags, passed through Montmorency and stopped at the manor. They told of the fall of Thérouanne, of the city burned and destroyed, of the massacre of the garrison. As for their commander, Montmorency, no one knew what had become of him. He had last been seen behind a barricade which more than 3,000 assailants were attacking. From that moment Henri felt himself at peace, and resumed his watch around the cottage, waiting patiently for Jeanne to recover. At last, one day, 11 months after his brother's departure, he saw her in the poor orchard belonging to the old nurse. The violent beating of his heart told him that time had done nothing to weaken his love. Jeanne was dressed in deep mourning, and in her arms she carried a child, whom she held passionately against her breast. Henri turned away slowly, already forming a plan. Jeanne was well again. At last he could act. The course before him seemed simple enough. He would seize the young woman and carry her by force to the manor. When he rode into the great courtyard, however, he saw a dust-covered horseman who had just dismounted. Henri went pale. There was something cheerful in the man's expression, and he looked like the bearer of news he believed would be received with joy. The moment the rider saw Henri, he came toward him, bowed, and said quietly,
Monseigneur François de Montmorency, released from captivity, will return to the manor of his fathers the day after tomorrow. He has done me the honor of sending me ahead to announce his arrival to his beloved brother.
Henri turned livid. In a single flash he saw François standing before him as a judge, demanding an account and striking him down.